Hello to you all. I'm TJ Holmes. It's 8 o'clock right now in Tokyo, where a massive rescue effort is underway right now. Again, we told you this was a two-pronged disaster. There was the initial 8.9 magnitude quake. That is a historic earthquake, one of the fifth largest since 1900. So this is one of the largest ones the world has ever seen. Now that has triggered a massive tsunami that is hitting Japan right now, but also we have tsunami warnings in at least 20 other countries right now, of some as high as 30 feet starting to come ashore. And when they did, boy, they took with them everything in their path, these waters here. This picture, you see kind of the wave develop. Of course, as it gets closer to shore, that's when it gets more powerful. It gets higher, and it moves sometimes out there in the water at some 500 miles an hour. But the pictures we are seeing of actually when it comes on land and just takes everything with it. We are seeing cars, boats, anything in the path of these waves just being taken. Is this the airport you were telling me about, Christine? Yeah, Christine Roman's here with us as well. This is a picture of the airport there in that particular area. You can see it's people literally looking for higher ground. Reports right now of at least 32 people dead. That is expected to rise, that death toll, and rise dramatically. But we do have tsunami warnings for about 20 countries, and includes the west coast of the U.S., Hawaii as well, Alaska as well.
These earthquakes occurred in the epicentral region of the large earthquake, and therefore we think they were probably associated with that large earthquake. They were probably an impending precursor, but at the time those foreshocks occurred, that wasn't necessarily apparent. So that's the difficulty. Foreshocks look like any other earthquakes, and so it's just not clear, when an earthquake, as it's occurring, when a smaller earthquake is just a smaller earthquake, and when it signals that something larger is about to happen.
I want to ask you another question. We were getting this information from the government about these tsunami arrival times, I guess you could say, but it's important to note that just because they're saying this could these arrival times happen, it doesn't mean that an actual wave is imminent, right? I mean, so we have this breakdown of where they may be coming, including areas around Auckland, New Zealand, all the way into other parts, all the way down to South America. What exactly does it mean for these locales that are getting these warnings about the when a tsunami may come?
Well, just like weather forecasting and weather prediction and so forth, there are computer models that are run routinely in a situation like this to tell you pretty precisely when the wave will hit. The uncertainty, so to speak, is the amplitude of the wave or the size of the wave when it hits the shore. There are a number of things that can affect that. As some of your other guests have said, these waves travel quite rapidly at about 500 miles an hour, about the speed of a jetliner in the open ocean, and they're not very high. They're maybe a couple of feet high. I think somebody said earlier that some of these waves had been actually estimated to be about 3 feet high in the open ocean. That's actually pretty high, to be honest. What happens when these waves get to shore is they slow down. The water gets shallower, so they slow down a lot. The water behind them sort of piles up, so that the height of the wave increases rapidly. And so you get this high wave, this high amplitude wave moving fairly slowly onto the shoreline and inland.
Some of the pictures we can show you here as I bring in Dave Applegate with the United States Geological Survey. Sir, we appreciate you being here with us. Help us put this in perspective. We know this is one of the largest earthquakes the world has ever seen. Just how rare of an occurrence is an 8.9 magnitude earthquake?
Well, as you mentioned, we've only had a handful of these in the past century. This is the biggest earthquake that we've had since the magnitude 9.1 Sumatra earthquake that struck the day after Christmas, 2004, and of course the devastating tsunami from that. This 8.9 is slightly larger than the 8.8 we had off of Chile last February. Again, significant damage, but as with Japan, the Chile was a country that had significant building codes. I mean, if there's a country that can try to take this sort of a punch, it is Japan. But the relentlessness of both the event and, as you pointed out, the tsunami is hard to deal with.
I want to ask you about the tsunami because we have these warnings. We have these sea level readings coming to us from the Pacific Tsunami Center. And as we start to see I guess, areas that are in the line of fire when it comes to these waves potentially making their way through, what are the biggest concerns that you're going to be monitoring as we see this?
Well, our job at the USGS is to report on the earthquakes, and of course that's one part of this disaster. Is not just the first event itself, as big as it was, but also the constant aftershocks. I mean, we've already had one over magnitude 7. That would be a big earthquake in its own right. We've had something like a dozen that are larger than magnitude 6. At the same time, the NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers, as you pointed out, are tracking the progress of these waves across the Pacific. This is a system that's been largely built out since that Sumatra event, recognition of the challenge associated with it. The warnings that have been issued for the U.S. coast, for so many of the islands in the Western Pacific, some of them the waves have already reached there. The big challenge is that while we can track the wave across the ocean very well, there's a tremendous amount of variability in the coastline. So the most important thing, if there's a warning there, is just people need to move away from the coasts.
Last thing here to you quickly, sir. How much of an impact does it have on this event that it was only about, I believe this one was about 15 miles deep? The depth of an earthquake, the epicenter, is always so critical. So what kind of an impact did that have that was only 15 miles down?
Well, you know, that's very significant, of course, particularly for an onshore event, because it means that the population is that much closer. Now, this one was offshore, so there were a couple of factors here. Of course, the one is simply the water depth, the amount of water that's going to be moved associated with the tsunami itself. In this case, the shallowness of the event is simply, it makes it that much closer to population on the adjoining coast. There's not as much, you know, it doesn't have to move through as much earth in order to transfer that energy directly to both the water column and then, of course, with the shaking reaching the populated areas.
All right, Mr. Applegate, we appreciate you. I don't think you're going to go too far. We'd like to check back in with you as we continue our coverage this morning, but thank you.